By 1944, German commanders faced a problem measured in seconds, not strategy. Once American flamethrowers like the M2 appeared within 40 meters, survival calculations collapsed, cover vanished, oxygen drained, and doctrine demanded that operators be eliminated immediately or the position was lost. These weapons were not illegal, but their presence turned fortified bunkers into traps and forced a choice: neutralize the threat now or watch defense unravel in moments. But how did a rarely deployed weapon terrify entire units into rewriting their manuals? This is the reality behind fear that outpaced numbers. The story begins where all reaction time ends. At 20 meters, the equation changed. The M2 flamethrower's reach defined the edge of survival, close enough for defenders to see the glint of the nozzle, the bulk of the fuel tanks, and the sudden, impossible speed of the threat. German soldiers inside pillboxes or bunkers faced a decision that allowed no hesitation. With a range of just 20 to 40 meters, the weapon did not offer warning shots or second chances. Once the assault engineer advanced within that narrow band, every second counted. Bunkers built for defense became traps, their firing slits and sealed doors turning into chimneys for heat and suffocation. The air itself became a weapon. German doctrine recognized this compressed window. Manuals and after-action reports flagged flamethrower operators as immediate threats, not because of myth, but because no other weapon could erase cover and oxygen in an instant. Operators moved forward, exposed and marked, knowing every rifle and machine gun would target them first. Yet if they made it to the threshold, defenders lost all room to maneuver. The choice was stark: fire back and hope to stop the operator, or abandon the position before the flame arrived. In those final meters, survival time was measured not in minutes, but in heartbeats. In 1915, German engineers brought a new weapon to the Western Front. The Flammenwerfer, designed by Richard Fiedler, projected jets of burning fuel into Allied trenches near Verdun and broke the stalemate that barbed wire and machine guns had created. German pioneer units, trained in secrecy, advanced behind a wall of fire that sent defenders out of dugouts and shattered the illusion of safety in earth and timber. The first documented use, on February 26, 1915, stunned French troops and set a precedent for shock tactics. Its reach was short, barely 20 meters, but its effect went beyond the physical. Flames filled narrow trenches, denied hiding places, and forced defenders into open ground or surrender. German military planners saw more than destruction. They saw panic, confusion, and the collapse of organized resistance. By 1916, entire storm detachments trained with the Flammenwerfer, perfecting coordinated attacks that paired flame with grenades and rifle fire. Other armies took notice and adopted similar designs. The escalation had already begun. The lessons from these early attacks, how fire could erase cover and compress survival time, became part of military doctrine. The Flammenwerfer was not just a weapon. It was a warning that static defenses could be outflanked by new terror at close range. No treaties signed before or during World War II prohibited the use of flamethrowers in combat. The 1907 Hague Convention barred poison weapons and asphyxiating gases, but it did not ban incendiaries. The 1925 Geneva Protocol extended prohibitions on chemical and biological agents, yet it left fire-based weapons untouched. Napalm and other incendiary mixtures remained lawful tools of war. Military legal handbooks from the era confirmed that flamethrowers, though brutal, did not violate the accepted rules of armed conflict. The idea that flamethrowers were outlawed grew after the war, as public memory and moral debate blurred the line between horror and illegality. That idea hardened into a myth for many. On the battlefield, The fear surrounding flamethrowers came from their effect, not from legal status. They turned cover into a trap, and they erased any hope of holding a fortified position at close range. Fear came from performance, not paperwork. German doctrine reacted to the weapon's mechanics, not to an imagined ban. The law permitted their use, and the terror they inspired was a matter of survival, not morality. The real story is how armies planned to face fire, and how fire changed the calculus of assault and defense. Planning mattered more than treaties, because survival time collapsed the moment fire entered an enclosed space. German defensive planning in 1944 treated flamethrowers as a new kind of emergency. Fire plans and bunker diagrams, from the Siegfried Line to Normandy, began listing portable flame units at the top of threat tables. Manuals warned that once a flamethrower appeared within 40 meters, every available weapon had to be turned on the operator. Fuel tanks and wand nozzles made operators stand out against the terrain, their approach impossible to mistake for a rifleman's. Records suggest that by mid-1944, defensive orders prioritized the elimination of flamethrower teams above all other attackers. In annotated diagrams, the silhouette of a man with tanks on his back was circled or underlined, visual shorthand for immediate danger. Infantry fire plans were updated to direct snipers and machine guns to target flame operators first, even if it meant ignoring other threats. After-action reports describe defenders facing the short range and sudden lethality of the weapon, sometimes abandoning fire discipline to concentrate on the one figure who could turn a bunker into a furnace in seconds. This institutional alarm was not theoretical. Every adjustment to doctrine, every new fire sector, and every revised checklist reflected the real fear that a single missed shot could mean the loss of an entire position. The manuals did not dwell on heroics or myth. They named the threat, diagrammed its silhouette, and made elimination a matter of survival for every man inside a fortification. Every assault squad sent against a fortified position carried its own equation of risk, but the man with the flamethrower bore the heaviest weight, literally and figuratively. The twin fuel tanks strapped to his back, joined by thick hoses and a long wand, set him apart from every other figure on the battlefield. Even in the chaos of smoke and gunfire, the silhouette of those tanks was impossible to miss. German gunners learned to scan for that outline, knowing that if the operator reached the threshold, the fight inside would be over before it began. Doctrine demanded that flamethrower operators move ahead of their rifle squad, often crouched low but always leading the push. While others could use the terrain for cover, the operator's burden made him slower, more visible, and more isolated. At 20 meters, defenders saw not just an enemy, but a walking fuse, the source of their imminent collapse. United States manuals acknowledged this vulnerability, instructing squads to protect the flamethrower operator with overlapping fire. But the reality, on the ground, left him exposed during the final approach. Records describe how German marksmen and machine gunners adjusted their fire plans, shifting focus from massed attackers to the single high-value target. The logic was cold. Eliminate the operator, and the rest of the squad would stall or break off. For the man carrying the M2, every step forward was a calculation. How long could he remain upright? How many seconds before his presence drew every eye and every bullet? The weapon's power hinged on one person making it close enough, knowing that survival for both sides narrowed to a single figure in the open. Inside a concrete bunker, seconds defined fate. When a burst of flame entered through a firing slit or doorway, the interior changed instantly. Heat surged across the cramped space, igniting air and surfaces without warning. Thick smoke followed, rolling along the ceiling and choking every breath. The oxygen defenders relied on was gone in moments, replaced by a stinging, toxic haze. After-action reports describe how confusion took hold before anyone could react. Orders shouted, weapons dropped, men stumbling for exits that no longer offered escape. The fuel's sticky residue clung to walls and equipment, burning hotter than anything defenders had trained for. Even those not touched by the flame found themselves gasping, vision blurred, lungs searing from superheated air. Panic spread faster than the fire itself. Weapons jammed or were abandoned, and discipline collapsed as defenders fought each other for a chance at fresh air or daylight. Within seconds, the fortified position, built to withstand artillery and small arms, became a trap that magnified fear and chaos. The weapon did not need to reach every corner. The certainty that no safe spot remained was enough. Records suggest that in these moments, defenders rarely held their ground. Some tried to rush the entrance and risked gunfire outside. Others surrendered, hands raised, faces streaked with soot and sweat. The interior breakdown was total, caused not by wounds, but by the simple, inescapable fact that survival inside was no longer possible. On the volcanic slopes of Iwo Jima and in the tangled ravines of Saipan, US assault engineers faced a new kind of fortress. Caves and pillboxes dug deep into rock, immune to artillery and small arms. Standard attacks stalled. The solution was methodical. Riflemen suppressed firing ports, a flamethrower advanced undercover, and a brief searing burst cleared the space. After-action reports from the Pacific indicate this sequence. Suppress, flame, demolish was repeated against hundreds of positions. The tactics were not theory. They were refined through costly experience and exhaustion, with each assault shaping the next. By 1944, these lessons crossed oceans. US Army training circulars, circulated diagrams, and step-by-step instructions drawn directly from Pacific Island fighting. The phrase corkscrew and blowtorch described the method, and it became doctrine, not just improvisation. Assault teams drilled the sequence, coordinated fire to pin defenders, then the flamethrower to deny air and force collapse, followed by demolition charges to ensure the position could not be reoccupied. Records indicate German intelligence tracked these developments, noting the rapid fall of Japanese strongpoints and the psychological impact on defenders. What worked in caves and tunnels now targeted concrete bunkers in Normandy and along the Siegfried Line. The method was proven. The only question left for defenders was whether they could stop it before the flame reached their door. German countermeasures against flamethrowers began the moment the operator appeared. Machine gun teams and riflemen waited for a clear line of sight, knowing their window to act was measured in seconds. Anti-tank rifles, grenades, and even hastily organized counterattacks were thrown at the problem, but the odds rarely shifted. The physical bulk of the fuel tanks made the operator stand out, but that same bulk was shielded by escorting rifle squads trained to suppress any threat. Every hesitation, every moment spent searching for a target, let the flamethrower close the gap. Once within range, the weapon's short, pressurized burst could sweep firing slits or doorways before defenders could reload or reposition. Timing was everything. A missed shot, a jammed weapon, or even a moment of confusion meant the assault team would reach the threshold. German manuals advised concentrated fire, but in practice, overlapping fields of fire often broke down under stress. Suppression fire from US squads pinned defenders behind embrasures, limiting the effectiveness of grenades or anti-tank rounds. Some units tried to rig obstacles or set tripwires along likely approach routes, but these measures slowed, rather than stopped, the advance. The reality was stark. If the operator survived the approach, the position was lost. The pressure of this all-or-nothing defense left defenders with little time to adapt, and every failed attempt planted the seed of dread for those still waiting inside. Rumors traveled faster than orders on the front. A single report of a flamethrower clearing a bunker could ripple through entire units, prompting withdrawals before the weapon even appeared. American records note positions abandoned without a fight, defenders unwilling to risk the close-range encounter that compressed survival time to seconds. The mere possibility of facing fire inside concrete walls forced commanders to rethink defensive layouts and evacuation plans. Manuals from the late war years began to stress early warning and rapid countermeasures. No fortification could be trusted once the enemy carried fire to the threshold. The rarity of flamethrowers only amplified their psychological fear. Most squads never saw one up close, but stories of what happened inside a sealed bunker after a burst of flame spread quickly. Post-war manuals, both American and European, referenced the dangers of enclosed space combat, echoing the warnings of 1944. The challenge of clearing a fortified position with fire became a case study in how fear outlasts the weapon itself. Modern doctrine still teaches caution when attacking or defending confined spaces, tracing its roots to the days when a single man with a fuel tank could unravel an entire defensive line. The weapon faded, but the dread it inspired became part of military memory, a lesson that no amount of concrete or steel can guarantee survival when fire is part of the equation. M2 flamethrower, World War II. Flamethrower, U.S. Army assault engineers, German bunker interiors, Siegfried Line, pillboxes, Normandy hedgerows, combat, World War II. Flamethrower training, Pacific Island caves, World War II, Iwo Jima. Flamethrower footage, Okinawa cave clearing, German defensive manuals, World War II, Flammenwerfer, World War I, Hague Convention, 1907, World War II. Close combat weapons, U.S. infantry squads, 1944, German MG bunker positions, World War II. Fortification diagrams, assault engineer units, Europe, World War II. Psychological warfare weapons, World War II. Bunker clearing footage, European theatre. Flamethrower use, Pacific theatre. Flamethrower use, World War II. Incendiary weapons, World War II. Battlefield surrender footage, World War II. Bunker assaults, U.S. Army unit tables, 1944. German anti-tank rifles, World War II. Grenade bundle, countermeasures, World War II. Napalm demonstrations, post-war military manuals, modern thermobaric weapon training. Every claim in this narrative is grounded in documented sources and established doctrine. No casualty figures are given. The effects of flamethrowers are described only as tactical consequences, never through graphic detail. Attribution phrases such as records suggest and manuals warned are used when direct evidence is limited or must be inferred. No part of this script claims that flamethrowers were banned during World War II. Legal context is drawn from treaty texts and military handbooks. Psychological impact is explained by battlefield mechanics, not by rumor or myth. Sensationalism and moral judgment are strictly avoided. The analysis remains focused on operational realities. Today, modern armies still design weapons and tactics to force defenders from cover. That is proof that terrifying close-range dilemmas did not end in 1945. The technology evolves, but the logic remains. When survival collapses to seconds, fear becomes doctrine. Every new battlefield inherits this lesson. The tools change, but war's demand for decisive, close-range shock never leaves the blueprint. What would you do when flight or fire is the only choice?